Hello, everybody. It's Reena Jadhav here from the Healthier Podcast with the amazing Dr. Michael Chang. Dr. Chang, welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me, Reena.
Now, you've written a book called Mitochondrial Dysfunction, a functional medicine approach to diagnosis and treatment. Get rid of fatigue, fat, and fog. We're going to go through this as a book masterclass, which means we're going to go chapter by chapter. But before we dive into the very first chapter, I want you to define the word mitochondria for everybody. And then I want you to tell everyone, why the heck did you get involved with mitochondria, given that you were in pathology before?
Yes. Well, the mitochondria is a organelle within every cell. And many cells have many copies of the mitochondria. And the function of the mitochondria is to make energy for the cell to use. So it's you probably have several hundred copies in most of the cells, especially in the more active cells, and they provide the energy, and so the cell can do its proper function.
Yes, beautiful. All right, let's get started. Chapter 1, structure and function of mitochondria. So health is all about energy. And in this chapter, you explain how this energy is created by the mitochondria and then what happens that it stops creating energy. So please.
Okay. Yeah. You might want to think of the mitochondria as kind of like a power station, if you will. And basically it's taking the food, that you eat, carbohydrates, proteins, and fats, and converting it into energy in the form of ATP. And that's the cell, the usable energy that the cell can use. So in order to go through this process, the mitochondria, which has a double membrane, has this electron transport chain. And it's basically transporting electrons down this chain. It's kind of like transporting electricity from the power generator down to your house. Through various substations that downgrades the power until it's usable by your house as electricity. So these substations, there are 5 of them as part of the electron transport chain, and along each step, it's creating an energy gradient, and the final process of this is to combine the electrons with water, with oxygen, and that's why we breathe. So now you have the explanation of why we have to eat and breathe. So it combines it with the oxygen that you take in and forms water, and out comes ATP from ADP, which is its precursor form. And then from ATP, it can split off the phosphate portion, and energy is liberated out of that process. So this is basically the reason we don't think of it this way, but you really should, as to why we have to eat the proper food and breathe. We again, don't emphasize enough breathing. We just take it for granted, kind of an automatic thing. But you really have to take nice deep breaths. I really emphasize breathing techniques, deep breathing through the belly breathing. And that really brings in a lot more oxygen, which can be used by the cells. So you got to eat properly, you got to breathe properly, so the mitochondria have the substrate to work with and create the energy. These little critters are quite sensitive. I mean, remember, they were ancient bacteria that became symbiotic with our cells, well, our ancestors, of course, hundreds of, I don't know how long ago, millions of years ago. And they kind of just, became incorporated into the cell, and they kind of specialize in making energy. And, but, as any bacteria, they do sense the environment. So the mitochondria is also sensitive to sense what's going on around the cell. So if there's any danger that might endanger the safety of the cell, they'll shut off the energy production and then go into a cell defense mode. And that's where you have trouble. That's when the fatigue starts to set in. Your cells can't function the way it's intended to. So you start experiencing fatigue, brain fog, you can't lose weight, a whole myriad of medical symptoms. So that's why these organelles, these mitochondria, are really critical in the proper function and health of our body.
And that goes back to cancer, diabetes, heart disease,
Yeah.
pretty much all chronic disease, all aging can be linked back to mitochondrial dysfunction. And now in the next chapter, we're going to talk about, well, what is it that bothers these critters?
Yeah.
Step back.
Yeah.
And just take a moment to say, we never think of our body being actually run by bacteria, right?
Yeah.
We never think of it that way. We never realize that actually what makes us human is the billions and trillions of bacteria that are in every cell, that are in our gut lining, that are actually the driving force behind, this 5'7", 120-pound person. This person doesn't exist if there isn't a incredibly healthy microbiome. And so I'm just going to do a shout out that your chapter 1 really underscores what healcircle.org says over and over and over again, which Hippocrates said so long ago: if you don't have a great microbiome, you really don't have health. So thank you. Thank you for bringing that into chapter 1. All right, let's do chapter 2.
Okay. Yeah.
So,
chapter 2, we go into some of the, the theories, such as the Robert Navio's, this cell defense mechanism that I just alluded to earlier. When the cell is endangered particularly by inflammation, by other infections, viral, fungal, or bacterial, those all threaten the cells. And so they go into the cell defense mode, and that shuts down the energy production. So if you have inflammation anywhere in the body, if you have infections, and now we know even mental and physical stress can affect the mitochondrial function as a form of danger. So all those can affect the mitochondria. And as you said, cancers, all degenerative diseases, and the whole aging process, now we know is linked to mitochondrial function. And invariably over time, the function degrades, and you have a lot of old and not fully functioning mitochondria, which kind of just stays there. And that drags down the whole process. So what we need to do is pretty much, kind of kickstart those old and aging ones to function again, and also for the body to degrade them in a process that we call autophagy. And so that's kind of the backgrounds for the next few chapters.
Okay, I'm going to give a list to everyone who's listening or watching of all the things that create stress and hurt the mitochondrial energy production that you've listed. So chemicals, pollutants, toxins, biotoxins, heavy metals, statins, antibiotics, psychotropic drugs. In addition to that, you talk about alcohol, caloric excess, EMF exposure. Don't even get me started on 5G at this point.
Right.
So in addition to the emotional stress, which is why things like meditation and deep breathing absolutely are the reason that so many of us get better. For me personally, I know for a fact that if I had not managed my stress and my breathing as step 1, I would have never gotten out of my health crisis. I would be dead. I would not be doing this interview. But now you're connecting it to the science, because whenever you say this to people, oh, breathing helps, they roll their eyes.
Yes, right.
That's silly. That makes no sense. How can breathing get me out of my sickness? But you are showing the
Yeah,
science behind
absolutely.
how the right breathing
Right.
actually is a scientific proof for how
Yeah.
it will get us out of disease. So, for those of you again watching or listening, please note these mitochondria are ultra sensitive to all the things listed. So, when you are sick and you're trying to get healthy, just doing one or two things is just not enough to restart your mitochondria, because that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to restart your batteries. And just
Hmm.
doing one or two small things isn't going to help, which is why, again, as I say, if you have been diagnosed, you need to overwhelm your body with health.
Yes.
You got sick because you overwhelmed your body with stress and toxins. So now
Hmm.
you're going to overwhelm your body with health. And that means you're going to kick out all the things that I've just listed. You're going to deep breathe,
Hmm.
meditate. All right, Dr. Chang, let's move to
Right.
chapter 3. Chapter 3. Tell us a little bit about the essence of that.
Okay, let's see. I just want to refer to my home
In fact, if you
notes
hold on a
a little
moment,
bit.
I'm gonna. All right, chapter 3, nutrition and the mitochondria. So you talk a lot about the elimination diet, ketogenic diet, fasting strategies. Of course, Dr.
Mhm.
Longo's fasting mimicking diet, as well
Yeah.
as a mitochondria boosting diet. So let's start with, what does the mitochondria need in terms of nutrition to thrive?
Right. The mitochondria loves to use ketones. And of course, I mean, usually it gets glucose to use, and that's what most people's diets are consist of because of the emphasis on carbohydrates. But ketones will actually clean a lot, will burn a lot cleaner. It's kind of like a cleaner fuel, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And it produces less of the the free radicals, which can damage the cell and can damage the mitochondria itself. So it's a much cleaner burning fuel. That's why the ketogenic diet is really important. If you have a chronic disease with a mitochondrial dysfunction, this is really the main diet that I emphasize. Uh, and not only ketogenic, but also try to do some form of fasting, start with intermittent fasting or time restricted
How
feeding.
many hours do you recommend?
Yes. I would like to start at 12 hours and then build up to 15 or 16.
What about the fasting mimicking diet?
I've done that too, and I've given that to some of my patients. I think it's really good. It's kind of like I myself was never fasted before, so I wanted to try it. So it's kind of like a fasting, on training wheels, so to speak.
So
For
true.
those that are just kind of afraid to do it, because you still get some food every day. I think it's about 600 to 800 calories.
Mhm.
So you get these, it comes complete with a couple of soups and some energy bars and nuts. So you still get the sensation of eating. And I think psychologically, that's kind of the importance. And I found it pretty easy to do.
I actually did the fasting mimicking diet as well, Dr. Longo's, and for anybody
Mhm.
out there who's interested, you can go to healcircle.org and search for me sharing a day by day experience doing the fast. I also share exactly what you get to eat on each day that's packaged. Carbs. Now, you specifically in this chapter talk about reducing gut inflammation by eliminating sugar, dairy, gluten, soy, alcohol, legumes, eggs, fermentable fruits, and vegetables. Now, I have
Yes.
some questions on this for you.
Yeah.
Sugar, no brainer, dairy, no brainer, gluten, soy, alcohol, I get.
Right.
Let's talk about fermentable fruits and vegetables first.
Yes.
I was
Mhm.
told that to rebuild your gut, in fact, you want to do sauerkraut and fermented fruits and vegetables. What have you found?
Yes, I agree in principle. You should have some fermentable vegetables every day. That's always a good idea. But some people really can't tolerate it, so I would just go slow. You
Mhm.
don't have to take a lot. Maybe a little bit, a spoonful a day to start, and just go from there. But overall, it's really the best form, especially if you make it at home yourself.
Mm-hmm.
It's really the best form of probiotic, as well as prebiotic
Mm-hmm.
treatment.
Okay.
Compared to
So you're
yeah,
not saying eliminate it. You're saying go be careful and go slow.
yeah.
And let's talk about the last item, which is legumes. What do you have against them, Dr. Chang?
Yeah, legumes, you got the whole lectin issue. Although I myself, I love legumes and I tolerate it really well. It doesn't give me any kind of gas, but it is a problem for some people. And of course, you should try to soak it before cooking. But then if you buy the canned cooked beans, I've heard there's really not much of a lectin issue. So it just depends on how you prepare it and cook it. But it
Got
is
it.
one of the best form of proteins, and it really staves off hunger. So I really use it as a substitute for carbs, for breads and pastas.
Correctly.
Yeah.
So the key message here is not that you reduce all these completely, it's that you
Mm-hmm.
find out what you're sensitive to. And
Absolutely.
and
That's
so
exactly.
that I think everybody should do a Viome gut test
Mm-hmm.
and do a food sensitivity test along with that. There's a couple of players out there that you can do food sensitivity tests. In fact, these days on Groupon, you can get one done for like 29, 30 bucks. This is so inexpensive. It's almost a no-brainer to see what is it that your body may be unhappy with. But the Viome gut test tells you what is it that the microbiome in your gut,
Mm-hmm.
what is it that they are looking to feed on, and what are the things that they are just not interested in. So it's what are your superfoods, and those are the foods that your gut microbiome can process, that it loves. It can convert that very easily into energy, versus the
Yeah.
foods that, even if somebody says that's a superfood like kale may be a
Yeah.
superfood for you, Dr. Chang, but it's poison for me. My gut microbiome just doesn't know what to do with it. And when
Yes,
you eat
absolutely right,
something,
Rita. Yeah.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
when you eat something that your gut microbiome just doesn't know what to do with, well, guess what it does to it? It converts it into toxic, what Ayurveda calls ama, or
Yeah.
byproduct, which basically
Mm-hmm.
means it's just crap that your body needs to now somehow
Yeah.
deal
Right.
with, and you don't need that. So I think
Right.
the most critical message here is that if you've been diagnosed or you're looking for health, you really cannot get there without first understanding what are your superfoods, your personal superfoods, and
Yes.
your personal avoid list. And by the way, we've done a partnership with Viome
Mm-hmm.
where we are the most cost-effective way, because the 25% referral fee that they give to their partners, we give back to the patient, because we are a nonprofit and we don't take 1 cent from
Mm-hmm.
any of the products that we recommend. So you can do, just for about $100, the gut Viome test on healcircle.org. You can get access to it, or you can just do viome.com/healcircle to get the cheapest discounted price. And that would be my recommendation in terms of this particular chapter, which is how do
Yes.
you make sure you're not eating things that are creating
Right. I agree.
inflammation.
I've had the test myself, and it's quite useful information. It's helping me. Yes. Mm-hmm.
The last point in this chapter 3, you talk about eating slowly, chewing well, and being relaxed. Why? Why is that
Yeah.
important?
It's very important. You need to be in a parasympathetic state, because most people today, they're stressed out and they're, way too much sympathetic stimulation. So you need to sit down and relax, give a little prayer of gratitude, and then that starts the parasympathetic system going, and that's going to stimulate your gastric juices and your digestive enzymes. So it's really important that you do that. Just give yourself a couple minutes, just get away from your work and your stress, and just kind of sit, close your eyes, give a prayer, and let your body do its digestive functions. Yeah.
There was so much wisdom in how our ancestors led their lives, isn't it? When I say ancestors, I even mean my grandparents. We
Yes.
always sat down and said a little prayer. We didn't just kind of eat while driving the car,
Yeah. Right.
or what I typically was doing, which is I would eat while working. And
Yeah.
there is nothing more toxic
Right.
than doing that, right? Being stressed and eating at the same
Ah,
time.
yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's
Right.
go into chapter 4. Chapter 4, supplements for mitochondria. I love this chapter because you went into such great detail on things like
Mm-hmm.
multivitamins and glutathione and CoQ10,
Right.
magnesium. So berberine, melatonin, B vitamins, let's cannabinoids, you even went into that. And so we're going to talk a
Yeah.
little bit about that because
Okay.
there's so much you covered. Just give us a quick summary of what do you take for your mitochondrial? Because I think that's the quickest way for us to
Yeah.
support.
Yeah. Yeah. I realize this chapter is a bit long and lots of things are listed and is maybe a little confusing to people. What I do, I would start with, I think CoQ10 is a must. Okay. CoQ10, magnesium, and glutathione. Okay. And you can take NAC. It's a much cheaper form. It's a precursor form of glutathione. So we can start there. And I also like the PQQ, which stimulates mitochondria to divide. And so you're actually making more and new mitochondria. Uh, so after those three, you might want to consider things like NAD, which is, basically a form of B3. And and then, or ribose. So I think that will form a good foundation to start. And everything else you can kind of try or add on if you wish. But I would say those are the foundations. Mhm.
One of the things that and I think this is where people like us get so confused because if you Google mitochondrial supplements, you'll get
Mhm.
all kinds of companies selling all kinds of combinations, very
Yes.
different from the ones you've mentioned. I mean, I've seen green tea in some of them, I've seen
Right.
astragalus in some of them. Um, where do you come out? How do we as consumers, as patients, get comfort in why can't you all just get together and come up with a single list? Because it gets very complicated.
Yes, I understand. Well, the ones on my list are really proven by research to actually do something to the mitochondria. Other things, maybe just general antioxidants, which is fine. That helps, uh, you know, um, reduce some of the free radicals. But those are just general things, right? I mean,
Okay,
it's not really specific to the mitochondria,
got
whereas
it.
the ones on the list are proven. Hmm.
And how do you take them? So do you take them in the form of supplements or food, or do you take pills? Do you take liquids? Which brands do you like?
Well, I take in the form of supplements in the pills. Most of them are in capsules, and the various brands. But try to avoid the Costco level, or grocery store. I prescribe, from my pharmacy using full script, and those are really professional grade ones. So really go, especially in CoQ10. I mean, there's such a wide range,
Hmm.
in the price and
Hmm.
quality. So you really have to be careful. Don't go just on the cheapest price,
Hmm.
because it won't be worth much of anything. Because many of these supplements, they're not water soluble, so the absorption is a major issue. So and that's why the newest form of CoQ10 called MitoQ
Yes.
actually creates a electrical gradient to push the CoQ10 into the mitochondria, and that really holds a lot of potential. And I personally like that.
And that's the company, right? MitoQ, I think.
Yes. Uh-huh. Yeah, I
Okay,
think they're New Zealand or something. Yeah.
exactly. So you do like that particular brand
Yes.
and you do
Yes,
recommend them. What
I do.
about CBD? You talk a little bit about the
Mhm.
cannabinoid and endocannabinoid system. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I was surprised when I did my research that the mitochondria actually responds to CBD.
They love CBD. What's not to
Yeah,
love?
right, exactly. So it's pretty much stimulates again, energy production and autophagy. Getting rid of those old and not working dysfunctional mitochondria, so make room for new ones. And that's really a pretty darn important function. Yeah, I was surprised to find that out
And
myself.
how do you recommend someone try out CBD? Is there a particular format that you
Yes.
like?
Yeah, the rule of thumb is always to start low. You might want to start just at 1 or 2 milligrams, and the sublingual form is good. Just let it sit for a minute or so to let it absorb, and then work up from there. Depends on your symptoms, but like for pain or cancer, I mean, you may require up to maybe up to 50 milligrams. So you have to kind of just titrate it up slowly, and see how your body responds.
Got it. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
There is so much confusion around supplements.
Hmm.
And my recommendation always is, one, of course, you can download our free health journal on healcircle.org. But really what I typically recommend is find a functional medical practitioner. Find
Hmm.
someone who will make sure that you're being tested for any deficiencies, that you're getting the right volume, the right proportions. What are your thoughts? Is this something people can DIY themselves? Or is this something you recommend that someone find a practitioner?
Yeah, I definitely recommend finding a practitioner, because that's why I kind of just listed all these supplements without any particular rhyme or reason, because it really depends. You have to work with a practitioner to know what else to add to that basic group of five. And really depends on what else is going on in your body. So definitely, yeah, work
Okay.
with a practitioner. Hmm.
Okay. And again, for those of you, we have a directory called healerpedia.com. You can also get to it from Heal Circle. Just click on directory, and we're going to work with Dr. Chang to find his recommendations and get them listed in the directory. So if you are looking for someone to work with you on this particular piece of the puzzle, please do check out healcircle.org's directory, or send us a message, as we say, help at healcircle.org, and we can get the information for you from Dr. Chang, depending on which part of the world you reside in. All right, let's do chapter 5, lifestyle changes. So Dr. Chang, you believe that, in fact, even more important than supplements, etc., are some lifestyle changes. Why is that?
Lifestyle changes is what's really going to move the needle for chronic conditions. So we rely on supplements as a short-term basis, as a bridge. But to really heal completely, I feel you must have lifestyle changes.
Agreed.
That's really a must. Yeah.
I
Hmm.
agree. So you've got quite a nice list here, and I'd like to go one by one and just
Okay.
get your feedback on each in terms of A, what
Hmm.
exactly does it do to our body? And then B, how frequently should we do it? So let's get started with high intensity training or exercise.
Yeah.
What exactly does it do for the mitochondria, and how often do you recommend it?
Yeah, the HIIT does a tremendous stimulation of the mitochondria. It's really one of the most proven and most powerful. And so it's uh, a short-term burst of energy of exercise that you do for 30 seconds or 1 minute. Then you take a 1 minute break at a slower pace, and then you repeat that for about 6 or 7 times. And what I like is, instead of a long, prolonged aerobic workout, by doing HIIT, you're pretty much done in like 10 minutes. So
Exactly.
I really like that.
Exactly. I
Yeah,
love
and
it. It's like,
you can do it at least 3 or 4 times a week. It's recommended.
number
So
two, oxygen and breathing. What does it do, and what is your favorite breathing exercise, and how often do you do it?
My breathing exercise is just the belly breathing. I've learned the Buteyko method. Your audience might want to look into that. Buteyko.
Mm-hmm.
This was a Russian scientist maybe 100 years ago or so, earlier 20th century. And he came up with a variant of the belly breathing that's very quiet breathing and slow. And I kind of like it. You can aim for like 8 breaths a minute. Uh, would be good, and it's like quiet and deep. I think a lot of the Zen masters in the past, you know, their breathing is in this form. I mean,
Yes.
it's not those loud, deep breathing that you know, with the
Yes.
mouth open. But so this is mouth closed. They're you know, you breathe through the nose. It actually stimulates nitric oxide, which dilates the blood vessels, and that brings in the oxygen and the food supply to the cells. So there's a very good scientific basis for all that. So that's certainly one method. Or you can just do, you know, quiet, deep breathing, you know, in and out with a break in between the ins and outs. You know, count to 10. So yeah, many variants. Yeah.
Sounds good.
Mm-hmm.
And again, for those of you listening in or watching, healcircle.org, we have simple breathing exercises listed everywhere. So you can pretty much click on any one of the different options, and you can find or join the Healthify free online 7-day program that has a whole section on breathing, as well as some recommended breathing techniques, as well as the one that Dr. Chang just mentioned. All right, the next one, hypoxia. What is that?
Yes, well, hypoxia is a form of hormesis. And let me just define hormesis. It's doing something that basically the body doesn't quite like, such as holding your breath, but it stimulates the mitochondria. So that's why we shouldn't live in a completely air-conditioned and heated world, you know, where there's no change, because it's these temperature changes you know, and oxygen level changes that stimulates the mitochondria, makes them healthy. Mm-hmm.
And what do you recommend? How does someone create hypoxia in their life?
Just try to breathe out for prolonged periods, breathing out, and try to kind of hold it as long as you can for maybe 5 to 10 seconds with every breath. You can do that as part of that Buteyko breathing exercise. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Next one, of course, stress reduction, which I don't think anybody needs to be told. What is your favorite stress reduction technique? How does Dr. Chang keep his stress under control?
Oh, yeah, I love meditation. This is something relatively new for me, but once you get into the habit, I can't do without it. You know, I do about 15 minutes first thing in the morning, and then toward the end of the day before dinner. It's fantastic. For me, I connect to God during that meditation period, and I just receive healing for your body. So it's not just blanking out necessarily. There are, again, different forms of meditation, but for me, it's like actualizing what I like to see. I want health. I want prosperity. So you just visualize those things, and I visualize a light. You know, God is as a light, and I just receive from that. And some people do the movement of the energy, you know, to go through your body down to the center of the earth and move it back up to the light. All that have been proven, believe it or not, to stimulate your mitochondria. So among other things, of course. So it's fantastic. Yeah.
Let's talk about sauna, and I would also love to get your feedback on infrared sauna, and if there is any difference between the infrared sauna and just the regular sauna. So how does it help? How often?
Infrared penetrates much deeper. The heat penetrates into the skin for about half an inch or so. So it's different from just regular sauna. But if you don't have a infrared sauna, but by the way, the infrared saunas are quite reasonable. You can get those little portable tents, you know, for less than $50. Yeah.
That's right.
It really
I
puts
invested
out.
in one.
Yeah. It penetrates deep into the tissue, and they stimulate the mitochondria. So it's very effective. In
And
addition to feeling really good, especially for my joints when they were so stiff. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
how often do you recommend someone do sauna for mitochondrial
Three
health?
times a week. Three
Okay.
times a week. You can
Okay.
either do it first thing in the morning, or some people like it before bedtime and puts them to sleep. Yeah,
Okay,
relaxing. Hmm.
fantastic. What about cold therapy? So I do cryotherapy, which freaks people
Oh,
out, but it's getting into the
yeah,
cryo chamber, which is minus
right.
160.
Yeah,
What
yeah,
what exactly does cold therapy do for mitochondria, and how do you recommend
yeah.
it? I'm assuming cold showers, but what do you think of cryotherapy as
But
well?
in general, any short-term stimulation by heat or cold will stimulate the mitochondria. So again, you're creating mitogenesis, which is a formation of new mitochondria, and so it's what our ancestors experienced before air conditioning and
So
heating, right?
true.
Every day they go through different temperatures, and that makes the body stronger, basically.
Now, one of the things you talk about is grounding and forest bathing. So, what is the science behind this?
Yeah, there's a lot of science. It's mainly coming out of Japan. They're really big into forest bathing. And they found that by being out in the forest, just walking around, actually produces a chemical, I don't remember the name of it, that they can measure in your urine after being in the
Wow.
forest. And so, yeah, so it actually produces chemical changes in the body. And so it's much more than just woohoo, type of thing.
And what
So
about
there,
grounding?
yeah. Well, grounding is it's fantastic. The Earth has a negative charge, on the surface. So our body generally is toxic and has too much positive charge. So by grounding, you actually absorb the negative energy, the electron energy, negative charge energy from the ground. And it doesn't have to be bare earth, although that's the best. Moist sand is ideal. But even can be concrete, out in your backyard patio or something, but always with your bare feet though. Don't wear
Mhm.
anything with rubber. So you have rubber sole shoes, that's gonna negate the effect, or even sandals. I see so many people wearing sandals, like even on the beach. No, you
Mhm.
really got to be barefoot. Yeah, so keep
Mhm.
that in mind. But doing
Fantastic.
it at the beach and the ocean is where it's really strongest. Yeah.
What about stem cell therapy?
Stem cell therapy, yes. I mean, it's certainly something new, but I strongly believe that's the medicine of the future, and they're already using it in injecting into joints and various body parts. In fact, I
I
think
did it
they.
as well. I flew to Dr.
Oh,
Kristen Kamella's lab in Florida because, of course, I am a biohacker myself. I test everything
oh,
on myself and I write about it.
okay.
So you're a supporter of stem cell therapy. Massage
Yes.
and body work. So that's another one that people roll their eyes. Massages are good, but they're not going to
Oh
heal me.
gosh.
What's the
Yeah.
science?
It's really helpful, I mean, it's again, it's good for the mitochondria, but it relaxes your muscles, and which will produce less lactic acid, which we mentioned before. That was
Okay,
my concern, and it's just general relaxation, but
got it.
there's a lot of behind it too. Yeah.
So it's
So
more of
I
the stress reduction that triggers the mitochondrial health.
yes,
What
yes.
about
Mhm.
structured water and hydrogen water? So that's the one where I personally am not completely sure I
Uh,
understand. How does
yeah.
hydrogen water or structured water create health?
Yeah, again, they stimulate the mitochondria. I was introduced to hydrogen water through a friend,
Hmm.
and initially I was kind of skeptic, but after I had the year acupuncture, my ears felt like they were on fire. So she gave me this nice, cool hydrogen water to drink, and it's like really soothed everything. I felt so much better. So then I studied the science. Again, there's a lot of publications, mainly from Asia. That's where it kind of started. Hundreds of publications, many of them in animal studies, but also in humans. It can pretty much help many of the chronic diseases, and it really helps chronic fatigue syndrome. And I can attest to that myself when I had the muscle fatigue and exhaustion. I mean, I would just drink the hydrogen water,
Which is your
One
favorite
four.
brand?
I use Truzy, and
How do you spell
they
that?
claim Trussii, and they came out with a new machine that claims to be have the highest content of hydrogen available. It just feels alive rather than kind of flat, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're stimulated to drink more of it than you normally would. So there's from a hydration standpoint, as well as hydrogen is the smallest molecule. I mean, it can go right through every membrane of the body, including the cell membrane, including the mitochondrial membrane, and go to work directly in the nucleus as well as in the mitochondria. It can stimulate mTOR, which is an anti-aging gene,
Mm-hmm.
and so it can do a lot of really powerful functions.
Okay.
Yeah. Hmm.
This is one of the reasons that I think ancient cultures or like Ayurveda as an example, or even
Yeah.
traditional Chinese medicine talk about eating
Right.
raw fruits and vegetables because that's where you get structured
Yes.
water in nature.
Yes.
So the
Right.
easiest way to get structured water in nature without investing in an expensive machine is just to eat
Right.
lots and lots of raw fruits and vegetables.
Yes.
Well,
Yes.
in reverse order, raw vegetables and fruits. We do not want you
Yes.
overdosing on raw fruits as much, but
Yeah.
definitely raw vegetables and of course
Right.
juicing as well, as long as it's a cold pressed
Right.
juice.
And
So,
also, you know, in nature, from waterfalls, you know, or moving
oh
water.
yeah,
I mean, that's where it's very, very strong. In fact, they've shown
okay.
that, you know, like the holy water in some parts of the world
Mm-hmm.
actually has a high content of hydrogen, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right, let's get to chapter 6, functional medicine approach to
Yep.
mitochondrial dysfunction. Let's start with
Right.
what is functional medicine for those of our listeners that are new to this particular term.
Yeah. Functional medicine is a different approach to the body compared to conventional, which is more oriented by organs, by body systems, traditional systems. In functional, we're looking at different systems, more functional systems like detoxification or you know, absorption and metabolism, which involve many different organ systems that kind of cross the traditional, you know, specialties of medicine. So looking at functions, and we're looking for root causes. We're not just treating symptoms with something superficial that blocks the symptom, but we want to dig down to the root cause and fix that. And that's really the permanent way to take care of a chronic condition.
Mm-hmm.
And the best way to really dig down to the cellular level is to look at the mitochondrial function. So there's nothing deeper than this level.
All right, well, let's
Um,
talk about
yeah,
that. So you talk
yeah,
about the three body systems,
mhm,
and then you talk
yeah,
about the three tests, the organic acid test, the stool test, and the cortisol test. So
yes,
what are the three
yeah,
body systems? And if you could just walk us through, how does someone go about getting these tests done, and what are we looking for in these tests?
yeah. So the three body systems kind of mirrors the way our bodies get diseased. Always starts with the neuroendocrine system. It's basically, you know, includes the adrenals and thyroid, but also the neurotransmitters in the brain, the sex hormones, and energy level. So we want to look at these pieces of the puzzle first, uh, because often they're a form of low-hanging fruit, if you will. Once you fix these, people feel better. They get more energy in order to do the more tougher stuff. So the second organ system is really looking at the gut, which includes, you know, the mechanical functions of the guts, digestive functions, but also the microbiome and gut pathogens. So from this, we move on to the final section, which is more detoxification related and oxidative stress. And so this is a nice orderly approach to working up a patient and treating them. Sometimes you can't dig right to the detox level when the body is not prepared for it. So you kind
Mm-hmm.
of have to go in a systematic way. And the organic acid test, to me, is the best survey of all the body functions of all those three systems. It has 46 markers on it. Starts out with how you metabolize your foods, which is your fats, your carbohydrates, and your proteins. And then it looks at, how again, mitochondrial function, the Krebs cycle, which is part of that energy conversion process before it gets into the electron transport chain. And then that gives you a good idea how you metabolize your food and how you're making energy. Then it also looks at liver function, particularly detoxification, and also looks at the neurotransmitters and brain inflammation markers, which are very critical. Can explain many of your mood disorders. And then it moves on to like your oxidative stress level. And then final section will be the gut, how your microbiome is producing organic acids, which reflect their function. So that's the most important test, I think, as a general survey. Most functional practitioners should be familiar with it. And it's offered by Genova, so it's readily available through a practitioner.
Is there a way to do it without a practitioner?
I'm not sure about that. They can inquire through Genova. I don't know if they offer it directly.
Okay. All right, let's talk about the stool test. What are we looking for in the stool test?
Yeah, the stool test uses PCR technology, which is looking for the DNA of the organism. So it's much more accurate, more sensitive, than the conventional hospital methods of somebody looking at a microscope. So this is state-of-the-art technology, and we're looking for pathogens, whether it's bacterial, whether it's fungal or viral. And we're also looking at your microbiome, the main players in the microbiome. And then we also want to look for any kind of dysbiosis, which will be imbalances in the major bacterial groups. And this is so common today. I would say nearly 100% of my patients have issues with dysbiosis. Mm-hmm. And it's a major problem because this opens the door to a whole panoply of chronic diseases, including autoimmune diseases, through leaky guts. That's the mechanism. And this test can also look at zonulin, which reflects the leaky guts. So that's really important, as well as various inflammatory markers. So the third, yeah.
And then the last one is the cortisol test. What are you looking for in that?
The cortisol test traditionally was, to diagnose this term called adrenal fatigue. Mm-hmm. And I know that whole concept may be kind of up in the air today, but I use it as a reflection of your lifestyle. Because it gives you a curve of what your cortisol normally does throughout your day, from the moment you wake up to bedtime. And if that curve is abnormal, it really reflects more than anything else you have a lifestyle and circadian rhythm issue. So you really have to work on that. That's very critical for the mitochondrial function as well. So whether you want to consider as a diagnosis for adrenal fatigue or more for your circadian rhythm, it's a very powerful test. And it really hammers in the message that a patient needs to work on their lifestyle. When that curve goes upside down, I mean, in other words, it's really low in the morning when it should be high, or really high in the evening when you should be sleeping, then you know something is all messed up, with either your sleep patterns, your eating patterns. So you really, it hammers home the message. They got to work on the lifestyle changes.
Absolutely. And so you typically get a patient to go through all these tests. And I'm assuming then at that point, you create a treatment program. So in chapter 6, you talk a little bit about
Yes.
the treatment of this
Mhm.
dysfunction. Could you walk us a little bit through it?
Yeah. Well, the mitochondria is actually quite amenable to treatment. One of the most powerful is that you gotta. We talked about those substations, those 5 substations in the electron transport chain. Well, they're all composed of proteins. So what we're gonna do, and you can't just eat regular meat and let that be sufficient to help the mitochondria. It's not sufficient, and you need what's called free-form mitochondria, which is already, they're broken down. Protein is a big long chain of amino acids. So here you already have individual amino acids. You have all the essential amino acids in a powder form, and you take one bolus of about 9 grams, mix it with water and without food, and just drink that. And that gets absorbed immediately into your system, and they go right to work to form those electron transport chain units. And so basically like building up your factory energy, your electricity substations. And so once we have that, then we of course got to deal with the CoQ10, which is one of those substations in the electron transport chain. Then you want to, as I said earlier, you're going to need the magnesium and the glutathione, as well as oxygen to make it all work. So it's not just one thing, it's really a group of things that you got to work on together to stimulate the mitochondria.
Makes a lot of sense. Well, how long do you see typically someone who comes in with average level of dysfunction? How long does it take someone who follows your recommendations in terms of lifestyle and supplements and the biohacking we've just talked about? How long does it take for them to get back to health?
Yeah. Well, doing the supplements, you'd be surprised. It's quite quick. It could be, 2 to 3 months. And of course, you want to follow that up with lifestyle changes. So yeah, we're talking about just a matter of months. 3 months, you'll be the mitochondria will be functioning much better. 3 to 6 months would be the average.
Got it. Okay. That
Yeah.
sounds great. And
hmm
in terms of the actual process itself, autoimmune diseases, what is the connection between the autoimmune diseases, which by the way are rampant at last
Yeah.
there's a couple of hundred of them,
Yes.
and
hmm
your treatment protocol for it?
Well, my treatment protocol certainly, would involve looking at the gut. So you want to make sure you don't have leaky gut. I mean, that's like the gateway to autoimmune diseases. And so you got to fix the gut first, let it heal, get rid of all the pathogens. Uh, and that will go a long ways in terms of prevention of autoimmune diseases. But even after you develop autoimmune diseases, the gut is still vital, because after you're diagnosed with one, very likely you go on to have more autoimmune diseases within a few years. So it's really critical that you reverse that whole process as early as possible. You got to start with the guts. But basically, the autoimmune diseases will obviously impact the mitochondria, and that's why you always have that fatigue associated with those conditions.
What
Yeah.
do you recommend for gut health for someone who is not yet working with a practitioner but wants to start immediately on fixing their gut?
Yeah, fixing the guts. You gotta start with really healthy diets. That's the first thing you have to do. Eat organic. Pesticide free. Really clean meats. I get my meats online. That comes from really clean farms. You really can't buy the average meat from a grocery store today, unfortunately,
Mm.
because the fats in those animal meats would all contain the antibiotics and pesticides and whatnot. So we got to eat really clean, first of all. And then, one thing you can do is glutamine. is really good to heal that leaky gut. It's a simple amino acids that you can buy as a supplement. So you can always start there, but always start with the diet.
Okay.
That's yeah.
All
Mhm.
right. All right. Chapter 7. Chapter 7, we talk about mitochondrial diseases. And I was
Mhm.
so happy to see, I shouldn't be happy at all about this, but I was and
Yeah.
I was very delighted that you have listed the diseases, because I just interviewed someone about diabetes and the question was what's causing it. And we have a lot of folks out there that say, well, we don't really know what causes it. But
Yeah.
here you are saying mitochondrial disease, I'm telling
Yeah.
you what causes it. So
Right.
you list diabetes type 2, cardiovascular, brain and nervous system,
Mhm.
neurodegenerative, chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia. And then, of course, you go into age-related hearing loss, skin, wrinkles, eye-related
Mhm.
cancers, aging and infertility. That's,
Yes.
gosh, everything, right?
Yes. Pretty much. Yeah.
Right? Like, what
Everything
did you
to do with
leave?
mitochondria. And that's what it boils down to, right? Yeah.
So let's just very quickly, because I'm sure whoever's listening has got one of these issues. Let's just
Mhm.
very quickly spend a minute on each, just so someone who has, let's start with diabetes type 2.
Yeah.
What does mitochondrial dysfunction have to do with type 2 diabetes?
Well, I mean, once you don't have the energy for like the beta cells to do what it's supposed to do, which is making insulin, you're gonna have a major issue there, and that's gonna lead to insulin resistance and eventually diabetes. So everything starts at the cellular level, and
Okay.
if the cell doesn't have the energy to do its function, which is like to make hormones or whatever the cell is, then you're gonna suffer. Yeah.
Okay. So your argument really is that when the body doesn't have energy, it's
Hmm.
going to create disease. And the name of the
Yes.
disease may be diabetes, but really the gist of it is
Right.
that the body just doesn't have energy to
Yes.
manage the insulin, or to, in
Right.
fact, and let's
Yeah.
take one quick moment here to talk about methylation, because
Well, ventilation is so critical in so many different body functions. I mean, from your DNA, copying the DNA to make proteins, to detoxification, through glutathione. So it's pretty much involved in every body function. And so if you have a MTHFR, SNP, you're gonna need some supplementation, and of course, not just that, but you really got to clean up your entire lifestyle.
let's talk about cardiovascular disease.
Yes. Well, the heart is one of the organs, since it's pumping 24/7, and it's working really hard, and needs a lot of energy, and that's why the myocardial cells contain a lot of mitochondria, and when the heart is when the energy is not there for what the heart needs to do, it's going to go into heart failure,
Mm.
and you develop, all the symptoms of cardiovascular diseases. So it's super critical.
So, Dr. Chang, let's talk about cancer and mitochondrial dysfunction. What
Mhm.
is the connection there?
Yeah. The latest theory on cancer is that it's really a metabolic disease. In other words, it's due to mitochondrial dysfunction and not a genetic disease. And they've proven that with many studies, including, if you take a healthy nucleus but have dysfunctional mitochondria, that cell can turn into cancer versus, healthy mitochondria, but genetic alterations, that cell would not turn into cancer. So that's very convincing proof. And of course, this was first shown by Otto Warburg back
That's
in Germany.
right.
20s already. So we're in a way just kind of rediscovering the wheel. But to me, it makes a lot of sense. And I think that's why, despite all the money that we poured into cancer research, we really haven't gotten that far in terms of, decreased mortality, unfortunately. And that's probably because we're overemphasizing the genetic aspect and underemphasizing the mitochondrial or metabolic aspect of the disease. Yeah.
Absolutely. And you also talk about the fact, and I found this fascinating. You mentioned that the functional medicine paradigm is that all disease starts with stress and gut imbalance, producing liver detoxification deficiency, accumulation of toxic load, oxidative stress, and then the loss of mitochondrial function. So it's not
Yes.
that the mitochondria loses function overnight. It's
Right.
it's a long journey towards
Yes.
that dysfunction, which commences with sort of this stress gut imbalance and then starts to create this toxic overload in the liver.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
To what extent do you think we should all be on some kind of a liver detox protocol, whether that's something as simple as dandelion root tea, or it's something
Yeah.
a little more involved like a liquid or a pill?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel that's essential for everybody in this modern age. You can do something at home. And for me, for my patients, I mean, I usually start them on some sort of gentle liver detoxification program while they're waiting for the lab results to come back.
Okay.
It's always very useful. And then that prepares them to take the supplements that I prescribe. Because if you're too toxic, you'll be like very sensitive to those supplements. You can't handle it. So I find that a very helpful tool to do right off the bat. Makes them feel a little better. And I'm basically strengthening the detox functions of the liver. Basically, you have, the phase 1 and phase 2. And if you just want to gently strengthen phase 2, which is, you give some sulfur-containing amino acids. And basically, these are like 2 steps, like a washer and dryer, so to speak, in the process that changes toxins, which are generally fat-soluble, into something that's water soluble that your body can eliminate through the urine or through the bile. And so that's the basis of this kind of treatment. And it's quite gentle on the body and just strengthens the whole gut function.
All right, well, let's talk about the fact that you say even wrinkles and hearing loss is a mitochondrial dysfunction. Dr. Chang, what I'm going to do now, right? Whenever someone complains of something, I'm going to say mitochondrial dysfunction.
Yeah, yes.
Because, I'm almost 50 and everyone around me is complaining of something or the other. Yes. How the heck is a wrinkle a mitochondrial dysfunction?
Well, it's a dysfunction in your collagen. And when the collagen gets weak, the wrinkles will form easier. And so all boils down to the mitochondria, that's why I personally like taking collagen peptides to strengthen the collagen in your body. It's a very critical function.
All right, let's go to your last chapter, chapter 8, where you talk about an action plan. Dr. Chang, what's a plan that someone can begin right away?
Yeah. Well, you're going to start with wherever you're at today, and slowly build up to a good plan. And a good plan will include elements from each section that we've talked about. Number 1 is to try to eliminate the toxins that are poisoning your mitochondria. In fact, that's quite critical. Dr. Klinghardt feels that's the most important thing. In a way, it's right. You don't want to just keep pouring in supplements when they're already poisoned, right? You got to remove the poison. So eliminate or reduce the toxic elements, and then you're gonna build up the mitochondria with something from the diet, with good clean diets, and then you're gonna add in some basic supplements that we talked about, the CoQ10 and you know, NAD, vitamin B6, magnesium, starting with the basics again. And then you're going to add in some lifestyle changes. The HIIT exercises should be the first thing. And then you can just go from there. I mean, whatever you can afford, whatever you do consistently. And that's really the key. You know, you don't want to just try it once and say it didn't work. I mean, these things have to be applied on a consistent basis. And whether it's, you know, being adequately hydrated, you know, proper sleep, and then you can try the red light therapies, the infrared saunas. Just keep adding, you know, as you go, and just be aware of how your body is responding. And if it's you know, doing well, then just keep doing it. Make it a habit, you know. And pretty soon you have a pretty robust program that you can do at home with really good diets, a few basic supplements, and basic lifestyle, and perhaps a few hormesis added in there, and you'll be on your way very quickly. So just keep at it, make it a habit.
Fantastic. Dr. Chang, that has been so insightful. I
Thank
feel
you.
like everybody should be following a mitochondrial health plan. For those of you listening or watching, we are going to, in fact, create a mitochondrial health program, a free program for you, an online program. So if you're interested, make sure to send us a message, help@healcircle.org, saying, sign me up. And as soon as the program is live, we will add you to it, and you will start receiving one simple change a day that you can make to get back to health. All right, Dr. Chang, thank you so much again. And for the rest of you, stay smiling.
Thank you.